hey there, you awesome bipeds, quadrupeds, and even the occasional dinosaurs. It is I, Little Wolf, and welcome to my den. Go ahead and come on in, but please wipe your paws before entering, and go ahead and take a seat by the fire. The cauldron is bubbling, so you can have your choice of tea, coffee, or hot chocolate. And by this time now, it is Friday, and I kinda thought, let's do another Fireside tale. And I know that kinda helps a lot of you out there by getting through your Friday and enjoying a quick story from whatever little segment that I'm able to find. And I was able to find a kind of short one this time, so it's not gonna be as long. Maybe I'll do another one later on. I'll think about it. But you know, if you're also thinking of trying to find help for when you're not feeling like yourself, or you're feeling depressed, or thinking you might hurt yourself, or you know someone who might, go ahead and hit me up on Discord, and you can hit me up in either my Little Wolf's Den or inside of my Swordsmen group, and I shall definitely put those into the description of this. But if you can't think that you're able to talk to me or somebody else you know, you can always hit up the U.S. Suicide Hotline number, which is 1-800-273-8255. Once again, that's 1-800-273-8255. And if talking isn't your thing and you want to text, you can always hit them up at 741-741. And if you're outside of the US, you can always look at suicide.org/international-suicide-hotlines.com. And that will give you a list of all the other countries out there and websites and numbers that you could use to get a hold of somebody to talk to in case you need to. Because keeping this stuff bottled up only hurts you more, and we don't want you to hurt yourself or anybody that you might know. I'd like having you return to my den, and I'd like you to do that safely and unharmed. Alright, so this, like I said, is going to be a kind of a short story. I tried reading it in my head and it went by quick, and sometimes that happens and it turns out to be a longer reading than I thought, but this one actually turned out to be kind of a short one. And it's called The Plague Pit. And this one has a reporter who's trying to look into what's happened around his area. There was a derailment at a rail station, and a bunch of people are hurt, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And he knows on top of the medical institute that's near him, there's a top floors area where supposedly secret experiments are going on. And so he tries to get his way in there, and he's unable to. And we see a quick breakout of what seem to be zombies that are happening in the area. And he gets away from there, and he meets up with two people who kind of know what's going on the top floor. One person's a historian of the area, and he explains that there used to be a plague pit here, where instead of each person getting their own grave, there was a mass grave dug up, and a bunch of the bodies were thrown in there. And there's kind of a weird theory that the hatred of the plague victims being put in there, and others who were buried with them by accident, are now trying to seek vengeance on the doctor who runs the medical area doing all the testing. So let's go ahead and sit back and relax and hear what happens to our reporter friend as he's trying to figure out what's going on. Plague Pit by Sidney J. Bounds. A scream brought the clinic to a standstill. It was long, drawn out, shredded nerves, ruined dental plates, and loosened bowels. It went on, as if it would never end. Ken Pike raised his gaze. There was no doubt it was coming from the top floor, where, rumors whispered, experiments went on behind locked doors. A harassed administrator moistened his lips. "Will somebody please ask Dr. Audric to stop that noise?" Although the scream continued, only gradually dying, the staff of the Medici clinic got back to work, and the arrivals bay once more was bustling with activity. After all, there had been a major incident, and the general hospital was struggling to cope with the seriously injured. Rescue crews were finding beds for the walking wounded anywhere they could. Even the snooty private clinic had been press-ganged into service. The floor was crowded with the injured, paramedics, and police. Ken Pike, a reporter for the local paper, had his own agenda, and this rail crash made a useful cover. He tried to get to a lift that was going up and found his way barred by a beefy porter. "Staff only, sir." It was frustrating. "At least we know something's going on up there. Our readers have a right to know exactly what." "You'll need to take that up with Dr. Audric," the porter said. "Please move away, sir. We have injured people to attend to." Pike went outside and stared up at the top floor. Even though it was not yet dark, all the lights were on. He knew it had been a manor house in the old days. The new lab had been built where the roof was needed to be replaced. A cube of glass and chrome, it catered to the seriously rich. Rumors multiplied like rabbits, and apparently the administrators of the Medici didn't care. He looked for a fire escape, aware that the scream had finally ended. By now, shouts of alarm were coming from the arrival bay, and he turned to see people rushing out in a panic, medics, patients, and police. He glimpsed a pale face streaked with blood, horrified expressions. A nurse stumbled in her hurry to get away. He felt their terror. One man held out both arms, coated in red, as if he tried to defend himself against a chainsaw. A policeman stood apart from the rush, speaking urgently into a mobile. What the hell was going on? Pike headed back. A man in pajamas and bandages came out waving a tenon saw, and immediately attacked one of the walking wounded who couldn't dodge quickly enough. He sawed at an exposed throat till blood sprayed. Pike was stunned by the violence, but recovered quickly and brought up his camera. Someone charged him. Bloody ghoul. Members of the public never understood that if he didn't push in anywhere, there wouldn't be any paper worth reading. He backed away and realized this was a good move, as other patients, wielding a variety of sharp instruments, pursued those trying to escape. He wondered if the top floor was filled with nutters. The ground at the clinic were emptying, so he retreated to his car. It was beginning to grow dark, and he had no wish to interview a homicidal maniac alone. He started the car's engine and drove beyond the main gate and out onto the road. A police van arrived. Uniformed men tumbled out and began to cordon off the clinic. Pike parked and joined them. "No entry, sir." "Is this to do with the experimental lab?" Pike asked innocently. The sergeant looked hard at him. "I know you, don't I? No comment." "Well, is Dr. Audric available? I need to see him." "The only information I have is Audric is dead, along with all the staff on the top floor of the clinic, everyone except the patients who are—" "Jesus!" A uniformed policeman stumbled from the grounds of the clinic, blood streaming from a missing ear. The sergeant snapped, "Beat it, Pike. We don't need you around here." As he retreated to his car, a thin ring of police were reinforced by another van load and some of them were armed. An inspector shouted, "Evacuate the grounds!" Pike drove a little further and parked off the road behind a screen of trees. He called his paper on a mobile and began his report. While he was speaking, someone rapped on his car window. His heart jumped, and he dropped the mobile. A mild-looking man in a country tweed murmured, "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. There seems to be more going on than the derailment mentioned in the news." "A lot more," Pike said, when he calmed down. "Do you know anything about the experiments on the top floor of the Medici?" "I don't, but I have a friend staying with me who does. I'm James Harvey, and I live down the road towards Port Lake." Pike opened his car door. "Hop in, I'll run you back. I need to talk to your friend, and I don't think he'll be healthy around here anyway." Harvey said, unsmiling, "I don't think he'll be healthy anywhere in this region quite soon." It was a short drive to a detached house up the main road. Henry Raymond, Harvey's friend, was older, stiffly upright with graying hair. Possibly military, Pike judged. "Dr. Audrey's experiments? He's dead, you say? Repeat your story from the beginning, Mr. Pike, and keep to the facts, please." Raymond listened closely, slipping in 2 or 3 questions. Then he went to the bone. Harvey murmured, "Henry's one of the ministries." "Retired," Raymond confirmed when he returned. "Sometimes our masters turn a blind eye to the experiments frowned on today, if they think it may prove of use later. In such cases, they keep a discreet, listening watch." "Interesting, but what's that got to do with Audric?" "He designed nanomachines. You've heard of them. I thought they were just sci-fi. Up until now, perhaps, but obviously Audric made some kind of a breakthrough. He wanted to insert his nanomachines into the patient's bodies, quite illegal, of course, to treat whatever was wrong with them. And he found volunteers. His practice is very discreet, and he uses only those who could afford to pay and were desperate enough to take any risk." Pike closed his eyes to bring back a clear image of patients he hadn't seen much wrong with them, apart from the desire to murder everyone else. Since Audric apparently succeeded, what on earth went wrong? Harvey laid a hand on his friend's arm. "I told you what's wrong. Now will you believe me?" "I'll keep an open mind, James. But will anyone in authority take your theory seriously?" "What's the theory?" Pike asked. "It concerns Port Lake. Do you know about Port Lake, Mr. Pike? It's your territory." "Vaguely. Halloween stuff, isn't it? We don't take that sort of nonsense seriously." "Perhaps you should," Raymond said. "James is a historian. Port Lake is the site of a plague pit in the Middle Ages when the Black Death was at its worst. People panicked. At Port Lake they found a deep hole and just shoveled corpses into it." He paused. "You know, Henry, it might be worth excavating to see what is really down there." "It might," Raymond agreed. "We need every bit of information we can get." "I have to phone my editor," Pike said. Raymond shook his head. "Don't bother, Mr. Pike. The story will have a D notice slapped on it." "Just like that? With people's lives at risk?" "That's why. Authority is dead scared of people panicking. The military are moving in now to take over for the police." Pike turned back to Harvey. "What's the rest of your theory?" "You've heard of genus Loki. The spirit of the place?" "Exactly. I suspect the spirit of this place, Port Lake, is a bad one. Considered what's happened around here in recent times. A drowning in the lake, a pile-up on the new motorway, and this derailment. So you're saying they're not just accidents?" "What we call accidents, yes, but set off by The lights dimmed. Sound vanished. An unpleasant smell invaded the house. For a moment, Pike thought he had gone blind and deaf and cried out. The air vibrated and he felt panic, like a black hand raising a grip on him. Someone, Raymond, pushed towards the door. It opened and he lurched out. The smell was stronger, bile, and it made him retch. A miasma like a dark cloud hung over the land and dimmed the stars. He was pushing along, stumbling, till a military voice snapped out, "Who's there?" "Raymond, with 2 others." "Right, sir. We've been looking for you. Orders are to evacuate this area. Some police and military have gone crazy, killing everyone they meet. The situation is in shambles at the moment." "Get us to Field HQ and locate a mechanical digger quickly. We've got to try some excavating." They were driven to an army base near Port Lake. A group of motor caravans and mechanical digger arrived within an hour. "You say where, James?" Harvey indicated a patch of sunken ground close by the lake. A strange darkness hovered over the water, and the surface appeared oily. Pike assumed he was getting used to the smell by now. It reminded him of a damp, unclean dish rag. A portable searchlight was wheeling up, and the driver at the digger started his work. He shoveled, taking great scoops of earth out of the hollow. He went down 6 feet, 10, 20. Then suddenly there were bones, skeletons jumbled in a pile, intermingled as if in a grotesque dance macabre. Pike stared, suddenly chilled when he thought one of the skulls was staring back at him. The view lasted only a fraction of a minute, and then slowly changed. A ghostly blue light seeped up from the ground, and the stench became overpowering. The skeletons that were now ribbons of flesh were rearing up, fighting and shrieking, bony arms reaching out towards the sky above them. They climbed over one another, moaning and wailing to get out of the pit, losing their grip and falling back. Like berserkers, they struggled in a frenzy of violence that scared even the battle-hardened veterans. Pike staggered backwards, handkerchief to his nose. The digger operator jumped from his machine and ran into the night. Raymond remained calm. "Can you explain this, James?" "Perhaps. The manor was owned by Audrich's family, and there are stories suggesting that not all of those thrown into the pit were dead. Imagine the horror of being buried alive with the plague victims. Imagine the hatred festering deep down before the end. Imagine this was an act of vengeance from beyond the grave, with the present Audrich as a target." Pike recovered and joined in. "But you were talking about nanotechnology, the latest thing in science. I don't see the connection." "Nano simply means very small. In this case, down to the size of bacteria, and a machine so tiny requires little energy to operate it. An advantage and a disadvantage now. Seems it also takes little energy to prevent it from its original intention of healing to that of killing. Moreover, these machines are capable of reproducing themselves." Pike lipped nervous lips. "These machines, how easy is it to introduce them into a human being? I understand they are usually injected into the bloodstream by a hypodermic syringe." So it was another example of chickens coming home to roost, but this time more than usually disturbing. "But it's going to keep spreading, right?" They withdrew in silence, each man locked in his own fear. Raymond dropped Pike off at his home. "Don't hang about. Collect what you need and clear out. I suggest nuking the place. But whether I can get the politicians to act before it's too late, I doubt. Pike stuffed an overnight bag with woolies, camera, and a bank book. He put his passport in the inside pocket and hurried out. Raymond had overlooked one point. A D notice didn't apply abroad. He could still sell his story, and, if he moved fast, claim a world exclusive. His car was at Harvey's place, so he headed for the railway station. Despite the derailment, there would be some kind of shuttle service operating. He was in time to jump aboard the local going out, found a seat, and settled himself. When he reached the mainline station, he changed to an express to the nearest airport. Europe? To start with, he'd cash in there and head eventually to New Zealand. That should be far enough away, surely. The train began rocking from side to side as it built up speed. This was local. The coach line juddered, swayed. Then there were screams as it turned onto its side. Glass splintered, and he heard a rending of metal on the sidelong track before it came to a halt. Pike gulped lungfuls of air. He found himself pinned down and could hear someone sobbing, someone else groaning. Voices babbled. He didn't think he was hurt until he tried to move. Hell, something was broken, and darkness closing in. That vile smell was coming with it. He heard sirens approaching. Bright lights shone. A man in a white coat loomed above him with a hypodermic syringe in hand. Pike screamed, "No!" "Nothing to fear, sir. Have you out in a jiffy. Good as new. With this, better than new." He jabbed the needle in and depressed the plunger. Wasn't that kind of a dark ending? That was kind of fun. I do like when stories have kind of a dark ending, or they end in a way where the rest of the story is gonna have to play out in your head. You know, Stephen King was really good for that, but he was also bad at ending stories no matter what he did. But he always made a good beginning and a good middle, and I can forgive him for that. But I do like how this story ended, and how you know that the reporter is now going to be a zombie and come back. And it has a lot of ring to an older movie I watched as a kid that was, I think, called Nightmare City, where a zombie outbreak happens there, and these zombies wield knives and guns and everything else to try and kill the living. And at the end of it, dun dun dun, spoiler alert, it was all a dream. But as the movie ends, the same thing that happened at the beginning of the movie is the way the movie ends. So it was a kind of a prophetic dream. And I love stories like that and movies like that where you kind of get an idea of what's going to happen, but you never really know. I'm just that kind of a weird wolf, and I love stories like this. And when I first read this story, I knew it would be a fun one to read out by the fireside. So, I hope you did enjoy this quick little jaunt into the zombie macabre, because I will definitely try and find more like these to bring up, because zombies definitely are my favorite movie monster, and monster in general, no matter what. Because no matter what you do, it's like death. You can eat all the healthy foods you want. You can exercise as much as you want. You can gather up as much weapons and ammunitions as you can. You can board up your house, and no matter what, sooner or later, that zombie horde is going to catch up with you. And they're going to get you in the end. So, in that way, it's kind of like death. And I would like to say that George Romero definitely brought the zombie genre into the modern era with his movie Night of the Living Dead. And I love that movie so much, and I could watch it over and over no matter what. And even though he didn't try and make zombies in that movie, he was actually trying to use a different monster, which was the ghoul, which was another flesh-eating monster of the time. He tried to make it into that, but the world decided they had to be zombies and not ghouls. But, you know, instead of just trying to fight it, Ramiro went with it and still had his fun. And I will thank him forever for that. And rest in peace, George Romero. And speaking of a quick rest in peace, I've just learned not too long ago that Meatloaf has passed away also. And he was such a fun artist, and having fun in the movie, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and him dying there and getting turned into Meatloaf too is kind of a funny way of looking at it. But he will be missed, and his music will be remembered. So, rest in peace, Meatloaf. No matter where you go and wherever you wind up, I hope you're still a bat out of hell. And with that being said, my favorite bipeds, quadrupeds, and even the occasional dinosaurs, I love you all so much, and I hope that you go out and get your shots. I hope you mask up, and I hope you continue to social distance, at least until we can get things under wrap a little bit more, and we can start to control it, because at some point we will. There's just no other way to kind of hope for. I mean, we have to keep striving forward to the future and keep doing what we can to help each other out. And doing all of that will help us and help those who can't get their shots because of a certain immunity or anything like that that happens, that they're unable to get that kind of a shot. So let's keep each other safe and healthy. And until next time, I hope you guys remember we live on one planet, so let's at least try and be civil. I love all of you bipeds, quadrupeds, and even the occasional dinosaurs so much. Until next time, Wolf out.